in the room. Okay. So, trusting in awareness. So this morning we had geese warfare out there, I think. I guess it was duck hunting or geese hunting, yeah? Kabang, 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 kabang. So that is an objective experience, right? That's an object, a dynamic object called sound that arose in consciousness. So my mind said, ducks? Geese? Yeah. So that was my response to it. And then my mind wanted to go a bit further, say, do they hunt geese? And you could see if I sustained that, there'd be one segue after another segue, and the bell would ring. Right? So when I trust in awareness, I know that's going on, but in spiritual practice, we're concerned about an involution, an inward journey, correct? The outward we have to deal with, obviously. Most of the time we're doing that. But in the spiritual practice, it's a kind of involution. So then I can take that very same experience and say sound is like this. And this is what Luang Sumedho's, again, our great teacher, is encouraging us. He's always, what does he say? It's like this. I know it's like this. How else could it be? I mean, blah, 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 blah. But what is the consequence of actually doing that? So there's the kibang, kibang, kibang up and down the Ottawa River, maybe on the Quebec side, I don't know where. So I could go out to that and try to locate it. Was it upriver? I think it was upriver, wasn't it? No? Yeah, I think so, yeah. And how could they hunt? Poor ducks. Or, whatever your flavor of criticism is, or if you're a hunter, which I doubt we have here, but I'm getting out of this retreat, I'm going to go shoot some geese or something like that. But it'll all be the same thing. And that takes us to Luang Por Dun's beautiful rephrasing the Four Noble Truths. The mind going out is the cause. The result of the mind going out is suffering. Now, it's not the suffering of a broken leg. It's the suffering of not noticing that which is not suffering. It's a suffering missing the deep stillness and silence and peace that is always there if we go inwards. The mind going out is the cause. The result of the mind going out is suffering. The mind knowing the mind is the path. The result of the mind knowing the mind is the end of suffering. It's like this. It's the end of suffering. Trust in that. See what I mean? Trust and awareness. So then you take the simple exercise of a morning meditation, in this case, the gunshots, and at another time you could you could critique it or whatever, but in this now time, we're doing something different. We're trying to come back to the trust and awareness. So sound is like this. Now what if you do that with the sound? Kabang, it's like this. What is the experience after it's like this? To me, it's silence. It's not a judgment. It's not an analysis. It's just silence. It's like this. And I think that's the moment that Luang Por Sumedho was asking us to awaken to. well, let's say you're meditating and your mind, you're sleepy or whatever, and then you hear the gunshot and you awaken. That's a really important moment in the spiritual life, isn't it? That moment of knowing that it's like this. So one of the things that is very, I think, important to inquire about is what happens in that moment when thought has stopped, when all the selfing, I-making, my-making, future, past stuff all of a sudden is interrupted. That's the moment of awakening. And what we want to do is expand on that. But quite often what we do is, of course, we try to do something to get rid of thinking, or we don't notice it. So to expand that moment of awakening, we make intentions, determinations, right? This is very important. And intentions are what heighten stupidity or what heighten wisdom. So I make intentions to harm someone, well, that's going to be misery for me and others. But if I make intentions of awakening, they're not intentions of desire. Sure, there's a desire to be awake, but it's not like I'm going to get something later on. It's an intention to awaken to what is now. So it's not a desire for an experience per se. Like I want. I read in the books that if you meditate, you have these blissful experiences. I want that. So my intention is to get an experience. But the intention here is to notice this experience. And so it doesn't really matter what the experience is, whether it's comfortable or uncomfortable. So may I suggest then that for the retreat, make the intentions of present moment awareness as opposed to future past. Okay? So the habits of mind plus the necessities of worldly life are always moving past future. It's the nature of it. So now you're making an intention to when past thinking comes up as remorse or nostalgia, whatever it is, past feels like this. It's very simple. Past feels like this. Future, same thing. You're planning, organizing, catastrophizing, whatever extreme it is. Oh, future feels like this. So you come back to very simple statements of awakening, and then try to sustain that. And that's what mindfulness is. Let's say you're having your what do you call those potatoes? The ones we had this morning. A hash brown. Sorry. We don't get those. So you're enjoying your hash browns because you don't get those. And then hash browns taste like this. But it's not about like tripping out on taste. Wow. Because that's not mindfulness, that's wow. So in the consumption of hash browns, you also have silence. Because you're with the activity that you're doing. So if I just grip this thing, I just kind of grip it a little bit harder. There's silence, isn't there? So in the contact with sense experience, if you do it sincerely, without desire to get anything, I really feel the hardness of that. There's the silence in the background. I can look at I'm learning a new way of weaving. It's called krokbragd, Scandinavian way of weaving. Very complicated, great fun. And color, lots of color. And I'm terrible with color. So then I look at that. I could say that is a kind of purplish, bluish kind of thing. Or I could say color is like this. And then there's a silence, right? So by just doing what we do, but doing it for the sake of silence, rather than, I think one of the mistakes I made early on with mindfulness practice was I thought I had to control everything, which became very unpleasant to say the least. Like counting your steps and counting the number of chews. You actually did that. Can you imagine how boring life would be? Because you can't enjoy those hash browns Viradhammo. You're a monk now. So it's not, but it is like just the simple activities of mindfulness with, I think, that sensitivity to silence in the background, which is always there. So you're walking from A to B, and you just suggest that to the mind, walking, but walk with the silence. Breathe with the silence. Hash browns with the silence. Whatever. That's easy. Let's say I didn't sleep well last night. Well, it was probably 50% of us, right? So I didn't sleep well last night, and I get a lot of leg pain, but it's not painful. It just keeps me awake. It's kind of number 2 in the scale, so that's not a problem. But it certainly doesn't help for sleep. So not being able to fall asleep is an object, correct? It's an objective experience, right? But guess what? I want to fall asleep. So there's desire. Desire arises because I'm not getting what I want. If I'm heedless with that, I have a very restless night, and I'm not a happy puppy in the morning. But, okay, that's what the work is now. The work is, it's like this. The feeling of not falling asleep is like this. Then maybe it's possible to rest. Maybe I don't get the deep sleep, but actually to rest the body in a way which isn't always just kind of restlessly reacting. And that is possible. So even in that situation of having difficulty in sleeping because it's not your own space, or someone's using the washroom next door, or whatever, it's like this. And then what is the problem here? I want. So the mind going out is the problem. And then what's the mind going out into? Into the objective experience of not being able to sleep. And then you say, well, it's like this. And maybe you do yoga nidra, but you keep coming back to a mind which is actually peaceful. Peaceful, peaceful, peaceful. And that's actually very, very difficult to do because we need sleep. And we want to sleep. And that's the kind of most biological, obvious thing we have. But yet, that's the way it is. The mind going out, and the mind knowing the mind. It's like this, the mind knowing the mind. So those are very simple things, actually. But our minds are very complicated. Our habits are very, very complicated. Dullness. First 3 days of a retreat, we're usually falling all over the place. I will probably this morning, you'll probably see my head on the floor soon. Well, it's okay. That's a bit embarrassing if you're the monk, but okay, that's very hard to be aware of. It's very hard to be aware of sleepiness, but that's the work. That's the work you're doing. I like analogies and metaphors and things like that. So the analogy of the circle in the center of the circle. So the circumference of the circle is the objects, and it's spinning around like a wheel, right? And then the center is awareness, and we're trying to return to the center. So when you're dull and sleepy, you're just on the carousel out there. You're in Gaga land. You don't even know where you are. You're not even in your body, and that's really hard to come back. But at some point, someone will cough, your back will hurt, or the bell will ring, and you'll be back home again. Right? So to deal with dullness, you have to get out of dullness. And the way you can get out of dullness is by knowing that you're feeling dull. That's a statement of the obvious. But it's amazing how we can think we're meditating and we're not quite meditating. So the best option is to do the Zen style of practice and keep your eyes open. And I often, I think every retreat I remind people that in Zen, I've only been to one Zen sitting in my life, so I'm a real expert, right? But that was in Toronto, in a Korean center. And the practitioners were against the perimeter, looking at the wall, right? All around. And they were instructed to keep their eyes open. And the jigijitsu, the guy that has the little piece of wood that slaps people on the shoulder, he was prowling behind. I mean, that was frightening in itself. And then every now and then someone was lying and they'd ask, "Can you slap in our beautiful way?" And the guy would come, whack, whack. And it woke everyone up. But they actually, I guess they saw that sleepiness is a problem. In Theravada, we say, have a good rest. Just kind of. So and it's always, it's very disappointing if you have a lot of dullness. I came here for meditation, I didn't come here for this. But if you're really whacked out, just get some extra sleep. Right? Don't worry you're not copping out. But if it's a chronic thing, be careful, because meditation can just become, chronic chin on the chest practice. CC practice. Then you have to keep your eyes open. That's really, really the best solution. So if you're doing that, then say, okay, that is the practice now. The practice is, how does my mind go out into the periphery? The mind going out is the problem with this hindrance called dullness. And how might I deal with that? And it takes a lot of vigor. It takes a lot of vigor. And usually the best thing is just looking at the Buddha Rupa, or looking at other people nodding, or whatever you want. But just keeping the eyes open. And it is so difficult, isn't it? It is very, very difficult to keep the eyes open. So that takes attention, effort. And then usually, once you've figured out how dullness works in you, you know the difference between, no, I need a rest, I just need another 2 hours sleep, or I can work with this. You figure that one out. So please, feel free to rest. Its opposite is just restlessness. And restlessness, you usually don't really need much effort. You need to just relax more. So, but what happens is with dullness, you make no effort, because it's so comfortable. And with restlessness, you make more effort. I've got to try harder. And you get more restless. And you've got to diagnose these things yourself. And then with restlessness, it's more like, be patient. And that's very important in a retreat. We're creating the causes and conditions for calmness, composure, collectedness, presence. And you just have to allow that in a trusting way. In a trusting way, you just have to allow that to have its own life. You create the causes and conditions. So that's faith and trust. In what? Faith and trust in composure, collectedness, present moment awareness. And you do that again and again and again. Try that again and again and again. And then see what happens. And I know you know all this, and you're all old timers, but I got to say something to earn my rice, right? Otherwise, you want your money back. And just one more piece around that. The image of the wheel and the center, I like that one, come back to the center. But sometimes the image is a more appropriate, a hurricane, where the stuff going on in your mind is like really, really loud and really strong and very emotional. And then there's the center, the quiet center. And that's when your mind is just going crazy with worry, or with like feelings of betrayal or old emotional stuff from traumas. We get that. We get some strong stuff coming up. Then, as we all know, what happens is the I sense really clicks in fiercely. The I making, my making thought processes, me and mine. So if you're like really, if you got betrayed by someone, right? You had a, in whatever ways we do get betrayed emotionally or whatever, and that betrayal hits you, kind of blindsides you. Your mind just spins out into self-thinking, doesn't it? What am I going to do? And how could they do that to me? Now that is a really interesting opportunity for purification, because something has touched you deeply, which defines your sense of how the world should be. And now the world is not that way. And this hurricane starts in your mind, and the self-thinking starts in your mind. And then you really have to work to draw it back home. It takes a lot of work to do that, but the result can be very, very powerful, because you've now liberated something in your mind which was very, very important in self-definition. So I've had that in times of like, say not recently, but times of like total lack of self-confidence for whatever reason. Something I can't remember specifically. And here I am. I'm the senior monk. I've been at this for a few years, right? And then it all goes. I don't know what I'm doing. I haven't got a clue. I've wasted my life. Where the heck is this coming from? Right? Oh, thanks a lot. But it seems so real. It seems so really, really real, because that's what the thinking mind is doing. Then what do? You see it as an opportunity. You really kind of remember, no. This is Mara. This is the voice of Mara. Come on. Stay with it. So the I thinking goes, yeah. And who's thinking? You come back to the center. Who am I? Back to the center. And that might take 2 days or longer. And if you keep at that, really, this does work, and I think we all know this. If you just keep at that, there is a purification, because that, whatever that trauma was, or whatever the reason for that was, is now being liberated from consciousness. It's no longer pushed down. If you don't do that, push it down, next time you get the same triggers, same thing happens. So that's the hurricane. And that happens too, not so often, but it does happen. Mostly it's just boring stuff we go through. Ho-hum kind of stuff. Okay, so that's some ideas on that. Let's do some meditation.